2026, just about 9:30 p.m. Mountain Time. We were live a little bit earlier with Fakeologist, and we covered a lot of ground. We were talking about the Marconi scientists and the psyop of whistleblowers and scientists being offed, which is not an uncommon thing. In fact, you may remember Isaac Cappy. Another, these deaths give a bit of credibility to the conspiracy theorists. They're dying for the cause, they're martyrs. But I think we're up to like 22 scientists right now. But there's something going on. There's something else going on here, which is the idea that there's been this secret meeting, like secret, so nobody knows about it. And all of the pastors who were in on this secret meeting are talking about it. So it's not like Fight Club, where the first rule of the secret meeting is not to talk about it. No, the first rule of this secret meeting about something that's going to change the world is to talk about it on X. So you have all these pastors who I think are just chasing clout. Like, I don't think any of these individuals have gone to a meeting where they're told, okay, pastors, your sheep are going to be hit with a bit of a cognitive dissonance when they find out that the reptilians, the aliens, are actually the biblical angels, and your God is an alien and Jesus was from Mars. Like, whatever they're going to do, that wouldn't happen. It's not like the pastors would be given some information to help the Christians through this time. It just makes them sound so infantilized. Like, your sheep are going to be hit with a shock. So we need you to meet with the government so you can prepare them. And those who do play along with this are either grifting, chasing clout, or they're part of the psyop. But how many of these pastors got in on this secret government meeting? And what percentage of them made videos about it on the internet? But I'm looking into it, and I'm more or less highlighting it, and I'm talking about it because if this turns out to be a nothing burger, all of these individuals are going to be, or should be at least, looked at as having really lost all credibility. And I think that there's not enough accountability in these circles. Like, none of the people who got behind QAnon ever had to really apologize for promulgating a bunch of lies and nonsense. But here we go. There's a Christian pastor who attended a secret meeting with the government officials about how to reveal the existence of aliens. He says the truth and a major disclosure is coming from our government: non-terrestrial interdimensional beings. So my problem with that one, of course, is if they're non-terrestrial, how did they scratch Tucker Carlson's back? So let me play a clip of this pastor.
Christian that we possibly can. This year, there is coming a massive disclosure. The truth, as the government knows it, about UFOs and UAPs is going to be disclosed to the population. The Trump administration is going to attempt to make history in an historic announcement where they're going to say that these non-terrestrial interdimensional beings are real.
Now, what does interdimensional mean? Like, what's the definition of dimensions in this context? Are we now of the belief that, and this is, again, the Overton window has allowed aliens in and now demons are in. So now do we believe in dimensions in the sense of parallel worlds, universes? Is there a, like, how do they explain this? Are they from hell? You know, what do they mean by interdimensional? This is like woo. This is new age, meaningless words, but people are running with it. Like, no one's actually clearly defined demon. As far as I know, demons in general, it's mostly a modern iteration and an amalgamation of a lot of things, including Hollywood and science fiction and B horror films. So I don't really know if I believe in demons in that sense. But now we're supposed to believe in interdimensional aliens. So here again is this pastor who was at a quote secret meeting. Like, I don't really get that. Like, who? Which governmental entity is reaching out to Christian pastors? And what about other religions? Scientologists? Are atheists not being told about it? Do they just assume that the religious people are so infantilized that they need Big Brother to talk to their priests and help them, but the atheists are just fine? Like, this is ridiculous to think. Like, what is it, Mormons? Are they getting in on it? What about Muslims? What about clerics? What about these, various denominations? Are they all getting it? What about Catholics? So to me, this just sounds like made up.
And that we do have unexplained phenomenon among us. This is going to be huge. Many so-called Christians are going to be taken captive by it. We have got to speak on this first. They need to hear it from us first. They need to hear from us what the Bible has to say about it. This is an urgent call to every pastor and church leader, including the ones who mocked me when I released this book and said I'd gone off the deep end.
His book is called Summoning the Demon. King Ravana says, who's in charge of Prison Planet Studios? The Onion. And, look, to be honest, Alex Jones has not been relevant for a very long time. The only reason we observe any of these individuals is because we're recognizing their positioning within the world stage. He's largely been supplanted by Candace Owens, for example. She's taken over this guard railing of the conspiracy theorists. It's like he's being phased out. And his latest cancellation is purely performative. And who cares anyway? What is he saying anyway that we need to listen to? To me, it's pretty sad at this point that the only way to get clicks is to pretend and feign like you're being persecuted. But it's not like he's even competing or that he has any real money problems, because this is all theater. Alex Jones is as real as Erica Kirk. He's as fake as Charlie Kirk. He's just an actor, so I don't really put him I don't put him in a place of great significance. Yeah, I saw the raids against Scientology. They have a lot of little people running into the Scientology centers, and there's so many raids that they've removed the handles on the doors of many of their orgs. Whenever I see Scientology being attacked, I kind of have to assume it's an inside job. Sort of like Alex Jones being censored is an inside job. I think that to maintain relevance, you have to create the illusion of persecution, if nobody cares otherwise. And again, I haven't really cared for a very long time. It's like he never did go all the way with the school shooting thing. And he backtracked anyway, and he never acknowledged the continuity of fakery event to event. So the problem with many truthers is they're stuck in the now, in the present news cycle, and they're looking at every day like it's a clean slate. Like, is it real? Is it fake? Is it real? Is it fake? It's like, they're all fake. It's like they have no pattern recognition. And those of us who recognize patterns are derided as being hyper-focused on patterns. I mean, it's like they're told by Big Brother, thou shalt not notice patterns, and ridicule those who do. It's like, yeah, I'm a pattern recognizer. And I recognize a pattern of the faux censorship, the performative censorship of these media figures. And it was big during Convid as well. And all these grifters get into it. It's just purely strategic. Waterwalking says, hey, Tim, you and Garrow should do a show together soon with Zach from Gematria News. Yeah, I would talk to both of them. Zach from Gematria News interests me because he's an atheist. And I'm like, why is an atheist using number magic? I'm curious to know, does he just think it's a code? Or is he reading into it? Because when you look at these various connections, and this is what Gematria does, is it manufactures connections using a couple of fallacious approaches, namely the Texas sharpshooter fallacy, and it allows the rabbi to extrapolate additional connections and meaning from the Torah. And these connections are so intricate that it could only have been God, because no human could have computed all of that. That's sort of the way that they mystify these dusty scriptures. And so the conspiracy theorists who use number magic are applying the same system, but they're doing it to the news. So I find it curious that a lot of these anti-Semitic conspiracy theorists use Jewish number magic, but instead of using it on the Torah, they use it on the nightly news. And again, the connections that they make, which are fake, are so intricate and statistically just impossible that it's either some kind of glitch in their reasoning or they're finding evidence of a higher power, of divinity at work. And I'm saying, no, it's not divinity. That's just a couple of fallacious approaches that create this illusion. So I'm curious again, what is an atheist doing with religious number magic? Because that is what it is. It's not like gematria is a hard science or some kind of mathematic discipline. And you could say, well, it's just code. Well, no, if it was just code, many of these connections would have to have an explanation as for who put it there. And these connections, again, are so elaborate and so intricate that many of them simply would have to be the hand of some higher power. Adam says, I discovered something. Michael Jackson and Jim Carrey were put in the world stage as Christ archetypes. I've seen a lot of Saturn stuff with Michael Jackson, the black-rimmed hat, and the cross posturing is very Saturnian, a lot of black and red. As far as the Christ thing with Michael Jackson, I'd have to look into it. Because with that, you have to have a lot of sun, death, rebirth. With him, I mean, I've seen like Escape was that one album. I don't know, I got Saturnian more than anything, but it's kind of the same thing. You're right, he's some kind of archetype. I'd be curious to see what you've looked at to arrive at this. Jim Carrey, JC. Yeah, Jim Carrey has been this in various movies. Yeah, he has portrayed this role of the awakening Gnostic confronting the demiurge. That would be, of course, Christoph. But I don't know if that would make him Christ. I haven't seen any examples of him in roles where he's sacrificing himself. Let's see, you had Bruce Almighty where he becomes God. But yeah, if you want to call in, by all means, let me go ahead and open the phones. Unless you prefer to use Discord, it's really up to you. What is easier for you? Right now, the number, I haven't tested out the new one yet. It wasn't activated as of yesterday. So for now, just use the one on the screen, 505-510-4226. I mean, JC, Jim Carrey, Jesus Christ. Yeah, there's that. Like John Carpenter, James Cameron. We do see a lot of JC stuff. I'm not necessarily disputing that. But I've seen more compelling Christ archetypes throughout various movies in others. You know, Joaquin Phoenix is a big one. Even the name Phoenix. The Phoenix was a symbol of Christ very early on. So phones are open if you want to call in. I'm curious about the Michael Jackson thing too. Okay, here we got the phones up and ringing. Hey, what's up, caller? Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Hey, how's it going, man?
Very, very good. And yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah.
Tell me about Jim Carrey and Michael Jackson. I'm more curious about the Michael Jackson thing, actually. But yeah, let me know what you think.
Sure. So like, there's several things like with Michael Jackson, aside from like the posturing that he does on stage and all of that. Michael, the name Michael, Christ is also known as the Archangel Michael. Okay, the sun is referenced as the Archangel Michael in several different sources, and then the name Jackson. Jack, when I looked up what it means to lift up, and then sun. So it's like he's like the lifted up sun. You can look at it like that, and then according to the Bible, Jesus' his earthly father's name was Joseph. Well, Michael Jackson's earthly father, his father's name is Joseph Jackson. Another thing, let me think, on to Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey, just like Michael Jackson, his father's name was Joseph as well. His name was Percy Joseph Carey. Like you said earlier, you got the J and the C, like, Jesus Christ. Both of them, their mother's name is not Mary. However, their mother's name is Catherine, and I think the other one is Kathleen, which means pure, because Mary was said to be pure. She had Jesus as like a pure person or something. And so there's that connection. More on to Jim Carrey. In Dumb and Dumber, he played the role of Lloyd Christmas. So,
Chris.
Christmas has the word Christ in it. And then on top of that, like the movie is very occultic and nobody knows it, but like he gets with this lady named Mary, or he's seeking out Mary, and Mary is supposed to represent the moon. He represents the sun, she represents the moon. And later on in the movie, there's a song called Mary Moon, Mary Moon. And so, I'm trying to think. There's several other.
Okay, that's
instances.
interesting because you have. Okay, I definitely see what you're saying there, the Mary thing and the Joseph stuff. So there is some of this, and Jim Carrey has spoken a lot about like the number 33, and so he does bring up the whole Christ archetype thing in the Gnostic context. I can certainly see that. These names are intriguing. Kind of reminds me, like Donald Trump's mom's name was like Mary Elizabeth Christ or something, or Mary Christ. I mean, it's interesting. So that's some good points there.
Right. And I just want to say this real quick because I'm actually kind of like at work. I'm outside, but Jim Carrey. He's also got the. One second. I feel like I might end up having to cut this call short.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Hey, you dropped some great intel. If you want to follow up later in Discord, go ahead. I don't want to get you in trouble at work, but thanks for calling in. And I'm already looking into these two areas. Thank you.
I appreciate it, IPS. Take care, bro.
All right. Thank you. Have a great night. Okay. Thanks for getting the call in. For some reason, Michael Jackson has been showing up in my feeds lately. So let's see here. Escape. So X is definitely a Saturn thing. So when you look at these various areas like esoteric symbolism, they come in groups, like the cube, the black cube, even the color black, X. These things tie in with, Saturn. The hexagon, hexagram, also Saturn, which pertains to the material world, the matrix, the control over it through time constraints. Specifically time, but time and space. And space X has some esoteric significance built into a lot of its, all of its pageantry. I mean, even the Falcon rocket, I think, is a reference to the age of Horus or Mars. Kenley says Dave. Yeah, he did die and come back as Dave, did he not? But no, this is intriguing though. But yeah, I have seen the Saturn stuff with him, the black rimmed hat. But yeah, there's the Michael thing is intriguing as well. And then I don't know. I mean, there's something kind of alchemical about him. They say it's a skin condition or whatever, but the duality, the tiled floors we see, the black and white, that seems to be part of the picture as well. With some of these individuals on the world stage in the movies, it's very subtle. Like Joaquin Phoenix, you find so many examples that you wouldn't think. For example, in 8mm with Nick Cage. He's a employee at an adult video store, like selling X-rated stuff, and he ends up crucified on a St. Andrew's cross. And while he's on the cross, he's shot with a crossbow, which pierces his side like the piercing of the side of Christ. And of course, Phoenix, the name Phoenix implies death and resurrection. But if you also look at the symbol of the phoenix, early Christian writers, they associated the phoenix with Christ because of the whole cyclical thing, the triumph over death, the rising from the ashes. And of course, Joaquin Phoenix as Joker. So the name Jackson, Joker, there's obviously code in these things. The anagrams, the initials. But anyway, the Joaquin Phoenix thing follows him throughout his movies. So in the first Joker movie, at the end, he is in the back of a cop car, which is then hit by an ambulance, and he's basically dead on the hood of the cop car, or he looks dead. And then the mob gathers around wearing the clown masks. And then what does he do? He stands up, and then he paints a bloody smile on his face with his two hands. So now his hands are bloody, like a stigmata. And then he puts his arms out, and the crowd cheers for him. So he's like, Christ with the bloody palms, having resurrected. And this all ties into the name Phoenix. You find other examples, like even in the movie The Village, where at the end he's unconscious and they have to resurrect him. So the girl goes outside of the village to get the medicine. But there's been some pretty good breakdowns of the work of Joaquin Phoenix. Even as, he played Johnny Cash, another JC. And there's, again, a lot of Christian subtext. And you find it in the weirdest places. I mean, Jeepers Creepers is sort of a slang way of saying Jesus Christ without taking the name in vain. So Jeepers Creepers, JC. And the movie Jeepers Creepers showed the villain in this kind of Saturnian garb with the brimmed hat, but crucified in a field of corn, which ties into Osiris. But it's worth doing a dive into these things because when we're talking about idols... Oh, okay, Mark Sargent tried to call and he got the message that the number is no longer in service. Let's see, 505-510-4226. Maybe I should just call out. Is he live right now? Let me call Mark Sargent. Let me get his number again. What I'm pointing out, though, is that these idols that we talk about, that's what we're talking about. When you talk about like worship or occult worship, whether it's witchcraft or paganism or any of these various schools of practice, what you have is this system of using symbolism in wardrobe and ceremony to essentially turn the priest and the priestess into the incarnations of the god and goddess. So during the performance of the ceremony, they are worshipped as though they are that, and people are essentially worshiping a god in the flesh. So it's an idol of flesh rather than of stone or wood. And in this sense, when you look at some celebrity, this is really prominent during the halftime shows. So when, like, for example, Alicia Keys dressed in red, which is very symbolic of the goddess, the Magdalene, the counterpart to the Christ, or Isis and Osiris. But in the modern context, the more recent iterations, she's in red. But she's attended by Usher. And Usher, if you remember, was in white. So the white and the red refers to the bread and the wine, the god and the goddess. And Usher was wearing, on his white suit, the symbol of a phoenix. Okay, so we're going to call out to Mark Sargent here in just a minute. Let me do that now. 303. Now his number is public, so I'm not doxing him, but I'm not going to read his number out because I could probably still get flagged. They're watching me because they think I'm a replicant.
Your call has been forwarded to voicemail. The person you're trying to reach is not available. At the tone, please record your message. When you have finished recording, you may hang up.
All right, this is phone tag 505-510-4226. If you want to try again, if not tonight, we can arrange any other night. I've got the next 10 days more or less open. Again, this is Infinite Plane Society. We'll be in touch. Let's see what we have here. Water says that movie You Were Really Never Really Here Was Good by Joaquin Phoenix. Yeah, I'll have to look into it because one of the first things that I caught on to when I started evaluating movies and their esoteric elements is how the same actors would carry the same archetype or subtext movie to movie to movie. Different production studios, different directors, but yet somehow they're embodying the same character. A good example here is Christoph from The Truman Show. So Christoph, who lives in the moon, is the architect of Truman's prison. He is essentially the demiurge that Truman has to escape, which does, again, bring in this recurring theme with this guy because Christoph is the engineer in the movie Snowpiercer, which is about a train, a closed system. The train never stops. He's the engineer at the front in control of everybody's lives, and it's actually this trap that they're in, and they have to stop the train so they can get off. Then you have him as the man in black in Westworld, where he's got the black-rimmed hat and a knife, very Saturnian, like the Reaper or Father Time, and the movie is about time. Westworld is about the synths trapped in a cycle of time, reliving the same day again and again and again. And this man in black, he's this Saturnian presence that the main character has to overcome to escape her matrix. He's also Kane in Maverick, which is intriguing because he's the guy who's trying to stop Maverick from doing this mission. And the Top Gun movie is replete with sun god Christ symbolism. Maverick came out 33 years after Top Gun 1. It has a character named Rooster. It has a character named Phoenix. So if you didn't know, like the Phoenix, the rooster is a symbol of Christ. And I think it's because of its association with the rising sun. Here it is. The most direct association, Apostle Peter. Let's see here. It's a multifaceted Christian symbol with origins in biblical narrative and ecclesiastical tradition. But anyway, so you have Rooster. You have Phoenix. You have a character named Hangman, which I think is an obvious reference. And the actor who played Hangman, I think his name is it Glenn Reynolds, was 33 at the time. So you've got Hangman. There's even a Bob, whatever the hell that means. But another thing too is like when he's firing at the other pilot in the black helmet, he has 33 rounds. And then of course they show the planes against the sun many times. They make these very strong associations. So the idea that the same actor, Ed Harris, is the opposition to the Tom Cruise character makes a lot of sense. And Tom Cruise is the Scientology Jesus. It's very clear in Vanilla Sky. He's 33, he dies, he resurrects. Vanilla Sky is worth looking at if you want to see a movie that shows the Gnostic death or the Gnostic version of Christ overcoming the illusion. And it even has Sophia, the embodiment of wisdom. Sophia is the one who resurrects him into the sim. The movie's also the Vanilla Sky, also has, of course, in addition to 33, he dies 3 days later, comes back. It is just full of references. It's easy to see through. But in his personal life, there's a lot of weird 33s with Tom Cruise. He divorced his wives all at the age of when they became 33 for some reason. And I think he was married, 33 years apart? No, 11 years apart each time. Look it up. The 33 stuff with Tom Cruise is legendary. But if you look throughout his movies and look at all his movie posters, what do you see? You see him hanging. The hangman reference. Hanging from a rock, a cliff, and his hair is blowing, looks like a crown of thorns. Hanging from the side of an airplane with the wings behind him and the sun behind it. Hanging in nearly every single movie poster, he's always dangling from something. Yeah, Adam, good one. JC, Julius Caesar. And there's quite a lot with Julius Caesar that ties into this idea of the divinated or the divine sun king, or the ruler being an embodiment of the sun. John Connor from Terminator. Now that's a good one because he's the time-traveling savior who's going to save mankind from what? The Skynet, the dark side, the Terminator. Interestingly, as far as sun worship or sun symbolism goes, the Lord of Night, the Saturnian entity, the Saturn deity, kills the sun, dismembers the sun god. Like Darth Vader chopping the hand off Luke, removing his lightsaber. That's the symbol of Osiris's member being cut off and hidden. But when you're talking about the solar symbolism, the Terminator is what you call the line between night and day. So the place where the sun dies is called the Terminator. So you have this light versus dark. I saw this very clearly in Fantastic Four, where you have this character Galactus devouring planets, and he's going after the new baby that the Fantastic Four have. And the symbolism is pretty clear. The Fantastic Four, like the four elements, the baby is this quintessence. But it was pretty clear to me that the devourer of babies is a reference to like Kronos devouring his children. And that doesn't mean like they're eating children in the Hillary Clinton Epstein way. It's symbolic of Father Time devouring the months, the 12 months. But the devouring or the devourer, the eating of children theme is built into that movie Fantastic Four, where Galactus wants to eat the child or devour the planet and take the child. But the point of it is, when I watched the movie, I reviewed it and I described how you had this Saturn versus Sun, where the four got their power. And a four is like the cross. It's got four directions. The year's divided into four. You can't really separate the cross from the four seasons and the solar cycle. And the Fantastic Four got their power by going into a rocket, which is an obelisk, a lightsaber, it's an obelisk, and it flew into space, and they got their magic powers or their superpowers from the rays of the sun. So sun, rays, or Ra, sun god, symbolism, the obelisk, they get these powers, now they're saviors, against this Kronos Saturnian figure. Well, the first movie, because this Fantastic Four is a new one, the previous one, I think it was called like Rise of the Silver Surfer, it actually shows the shadow of Galactus's head covering Saturn, the planet. So what I'm pointing out here again is that this is consistent in all the movies. And we've been talking about this. What's with the Christ stuff? What's with the Saturn stuff, the Gnostic stuff? And my take on it now is that we're looking at a deliberate effort to appropriate religious iconography and symbolism and amalgate it into their one world universal religion, this new paradigm. So instead of going to church and getting these stories, instead of reading scriptures, you're getting it in the movies. And I describe the news, insofar as the mass media has supplanted religion, I've been describing the news as the News Testament. And that is its purpose. It gives us the worldview according to the priesthood. It supplies us with the martyrs, the myths, the miracles. But I found this to be a consistent pattern, and I looked at various actors, and once you figure out what their particular archetype is or how they're being used, it's kind of intriguing to see how it could not be simply coincidence. I coined the term originally Hollywood archetype casting. So instead of like typecasting, archetype casting refers to beyond just their superficial characteristics, what deeper symbolism can they embody? What can they put into the subtext? What else is contained within the character? And names are obviously important in this. Yeah, but good call there on John Connor. Neo from the Matrix, the One. He confronts the architect, which is what demiurge means. He's confronting the archons, which are the agents. And when he dies, he's resurrected by Trinity, an obvious reference, and he dies for 72 seconds. Now, 72 seconds, of course, 72 hours, 3 days before his resurrection. Now, he had that passport thing, which had a 9/11 reference, and it also had, I think it had a 3/11 reference. Let me look this up, passport. I want to see if I can get a picture of it. Because 9/11 is a very significant date. It's the New Year's date on, here we go. Okay, in the film, Neo's passport has an issue date. Here it is. No, it's the expiration date of September 11th, 2001. Now, the interesting thing about Neo's passport being connected with 9/11 is that 9/11 was basically solved by some FBI agent who found a passport, the magic passport. Just a very key prop. And for him to have that in there, that's intriguing. But I thought there was something else in there with the 3/11. I want to see. Okay, and then there's also the idea that Jesus was born on 9/11. And then there's this. The Ethiopian New Year, September 11th. Of course, that's the New Year on that particular calendar. Thank you for supporting the IPS think tank. Those of you who are keeping this channel going, I want to say thanks, because we are at a very critical stage here. My intention here is to blow up the off-world stage perspective to the point where it can't be deleted or erased or censored. And the longer we go on without any formal acknowledgement of this as a separate demographic, the better. We're still gathering our forces. We're still aggregating. But as we move forward, you're going to see what I mean. Because what we represent is a marketplace disruption in what is a monopoly. There's a monopoly on worldview. Now, it's expressed as a duopoly, the two sides triangulated against each other, and it's not even a real competition. Mainstream is not competing with alternative to sell the general public on the truth. It's not a competition. Any more than wrestlers in professional wrestling are in competition. The competition is purely symbolic. All right, I'm not sure if we're going to get Mark on the phone tonight, but we will reach out here in the near future. And I'm going to get the 800 number working. I'm not sure if it's up. The company culture has been very slow, but I'm going to get it going likely by tomorrow. I'll have more time. So we're talking about how these pastors are claiming that Trump's going to make history and that the pastors are being told by the government to get their believers ready for the alien revelation. So I'm just pointing this out because every single one of them is going to have to be called out as a grifter and a liar if we're served a major nothing burger. Let me play a few more seconds of this pastor who's claiming that Trump's going to make history, and he's got a book here called Summoning the Demon. And if you've been listening to my channel for like more than a year or two, I have been talking about how I noticed the relationship between demons and aliens as they pertain to the far left and the far right. And this demon narrative as it pertains to aliens has been like the main topic for the last couple of months.
Of course, they didn't read the book. They didn't know what I said about it. It's time for every single pastor to teach on this. What does the Bible say about non-human entities? Now, you have noticed that the language has changed in these Department of Defense meetings as well as in these congressional hearings. They're no longer saying extraterrestrial. They're saying non-human entities. Are there non-human entities in the Bible who attempt to influence mankind? The answer to the question is yes. Are there non-human entities who use mechanisms of transport of some kind in order to travel? And the answer to that is yes.
Now, is that true outside of the book of Enoch? Outside of the Apocrypha? Because if you're going to include these extra books, then you got to include other things as well, like dragons. Giants are part of it. Stephen Greer warned that the UFO topic was going to be turned into a holy war. Days later, reports surfaced that pastors are being told UFO disclosure will involve the interdimensional aliens that created humanity. On the mark again. So interdimensional means non-corporeal, no bodies, disincarnate. So how are they creating the hybrids? You know, how are they creating us? This doesn't quite make sense to me. Did the angels not take on physical bodies? And what about all the people who, David Icke's take on it is that the reptilians exist at a different dimension and they possess people who shapeshift. So is that what we're talking about, shapeshifters? Now, someone did point out, if you look at the image of the Roswell gray alien, it actually looks like a snake head when viewed from the top. Like it's a bit of an optical illusion hidden in your face. Ty McCloskey says Jesus had non-human powers. Yeah, Jesus and Dionysus both. Water to wine. Resurrecting from the dead. I think they actually killed Dionysus for turning water into wine. They actually killed him over that because it was some kind of sorcery. Wasn't Moses a magus as well? He turned like a snake or a stick into a snake. And then you had Simon the Magus who could levitate. Lean Dion says the Christian nationalism stuff is concurrent in the news. Let's see. Deifying the Homelander as an actual messiah like has happened with Trump. Yeah, that's interesting. The new season of The Boys just came out. You're right. The Christian nationalism stuff in The Boys, including them deifying the Homelander. I started watching the first episode last night. I'm going to have to watch more because the Christification of Trump, the martyrdom of Trump, goes deep. In fact, after his arrest, and this is all overlapping in very intriguing ways because we were just talking about the symbol of Joker and the various symbols and the archetypes. On 4/4/2023, Trump is in the courthouse. He's on trial. And after that, he takes his suit that he wore for his mugshot and he had it cut into 47 pieces to be auctioned off, which kind of reminds me of how Jesus is stripped down and then his clothes are gambled over. But during that time, it was Holy Week. Marjorie Taylor Greene said Trump was Jesus. Now she says he's the Antichrist, but back then he was Jesus. Saturday Night Live mocked him as Jesus at the Last Supper. This is right before he goes in. And while he's in the courthouse, there's a mob gathered outside. And people driving by thought the mob was there for Trump. This big group of people with signs and these protesters dressed up like Joker. No, they were there because Joker 2 was being filmed there at the same time. Again, 4/4/2023, with the 55th anniversary of MLK's assassination. So you added that onto the story. But the overlapping of the filming of Joker and the Trump on trial really stood out to me as more than coincidence. And then it also happened to be the case that 4/4/2023 was the 44th birthday of Heath Ledger, the previous Joker. And now you got Joker 2 with Joaquin Phoenix. But the number 44 in this context took on some significance. If you look at the number 4 as a cross, 4/4 could reference the double cross, the resurrection, the cross of the two-barred cross, the patriarchal cross. One bar is death, one is resurrection, or one's the second coming. It's this idea here of this second coming kind of built into it. In fact, we were talking about the double cross symbolism because Tom Cruise, Tom means twin. But yeah, the patriarchal cross, the cross of Lorraine, the shorter upper bar, and then you have the two bars, symbols of the death and resurrection. Wayne Dion said he posted that Christ-like image of... Yeah, lately Trump has been posting images of himself as Jesus. Like, I don't know why this... I mean, it's blasphemy, but people do actually worship the guy. You can find videos of people praying to Donald Trump. He's more antichrist, if you ask me, than Christ. And we can extrapolate this from his predictive programming counterparts. And of course, I think the Revelation 13 thing's pretty strong with him. Think about it. A verse about this person getting a head wound in front of the world and then surviving it as a miracle. Like, if people didn't hate him so much, they would have to recognize what a remarkable thing that is. Get your ear pierced by an AR-15. I still think they should have said Thomas Crooks was a flat earther. Since they're trying to demonize every single conspiracy theorist, they could have said, oh yeah, he would have hit him right in the head, but, the earth rotated and moved Trump out of the path of the bullet, but the flat earther didn't calculate for the rotation of the earth, like globe earth snipers do. All right, so anyway, Stephen Greer, I'm surprised they didn't off him like they did the other one, Wilcock, who his believers, by the way, think that he went undercover to investigate UFOs. The ufology is a huge cult, by the way. Just James says, I knew this guy was a disinfo agent. Yeah, so Professor Jang from Predictive History says that Trump is not going to die as long as he's in office because he is a emotional vampire. And here's what he says. This is a quote. If we all have Trump on our minds, he becomes a convergence of all individual realities on earth. This convergence is what we call God. This is Professor Yang of predictive history. I knew he was a psyop within a millisecond, but a lot of people around me liked his lectures, and I found some of them interesting. But as soon as I started to pick up on J-Pill stuff, I knew he was a plant. And then I see him on Tucker, and now he's out here in this long video saying that Donald Trump is an emotional demon, a psychic vampire, and that he is essentially God and he's never going to leave office and he's immortal. Listen to this crap.
I mean, he'll charge someone, I think, $100,000 a year just to consult on how to, the speech, the movement of one person. You just look at how he spends his day. It's always with the press, right? It's always either on Truth Social or giving a press conference or talking to a reporter. It's amazing how reporters in Washington, D.C. are like, oh my God, I can call up the President of the United States. Talk to me for an hour.
So he's trying to make the case that Trump's overwhelming media presence has made him into a god.
Like that before, right? So let's go back to the idea that consciousness is creation of reality. But what this means is that we create our own individual reality, naturally.
So anyway, I'm not going to get too much into it, but he's gone full on new agey, and he's I guess a subjectivist solipsist who believes that we are living in a reality that is created as we go with the help of TV. And, he's taken some ideas that may have some validity, but then they go too far with it, or they go outside of what can be rationally deduced. But what's even worse here is that this guy will not identify the fake events as fake, but he'll say that the Butler, Pennsylvania thing was real and it was a ritual. Charlie Kirk's death was real and it was a ritual. So they get into this new agey stuff, which is very discrediting. If you look on the screen, I'll say thanks to John the Beggar, called into Fakeologist. Here he is. Well, he's not in the picture, but here he is wearing the IPS hat. This is the one. What do you call the hats that have the 5 sections? What is it called? There's various styles of these hats. It's not the snapback. It's not the trucker hat. It's another version of it. I'll see if I can find the exact one. But anyway, I've been looking at different versions. The one that I have right now is the corduroy vintage. All right, let's continue here. Lean Dion says, will they do disclosure when the Spielberg movie drops? Yeah, and we shouldn't lose this point. We shouldn't lose that point. That all of this conjecture about aliens and demons and rapture and disclosure, the world changing and pastors having to warn their flock about interdimensional aliens taking over and all that, none of this was even a topic for conversation. We were talking about P. Diddy, Epstein Island, and all of a sudden, it's all about aliens. But this didn't happen until the Steven Spielberg trailer came out. Not even the movie, just the trailer. Which again reiterates my point that the movie screen is the Overton window, and anything they put on the movie screen is now in the public's frame of reference, and they are prepared to accept it. The term predictive programming makes perfect sense. That's why it's extremely pertinent now, as far as predictive programming, that Terminator 2 is going to be released in the movie theaters next week for the 35th anniversary. and it significantly has the most realistic depiction of the nuking of a coastal city, according to scientists, in cinema. I don't know if that includes Oppenheimer, it might, but regardless, the point of it is you have the Terminator, you have the nuke. James Cameron has 9/11 predictive programming in the Terminator movie. If you know, you know. It's the motorcycle scene. But then he also has the 9/11 predictive stuff in Titanic, which again has some deep significance connected to the 9/11 sinking towers. But also on 9/11, overlooking, yeah, it's called Judgment Day, Adam, thank you. And overlooking Ground Zero, you had Arnold Schwarzenegger's face on many billboards for the Collateral Damage, the movie Collateral Damage, which, by the way, was postponed. It was supposed to come out in October, but because it had so many scenes that seemed to be directly out of 9/11, they had to do a rewrite. So the movie was delayed for almost a year. But the point of it is, the handheld camera that shows the explosion on one of the towers has Arnold Schwarzenegger's face overlooking Ground Zero. And I think Terminator I think it ties in with this Apollyon, Exterminator, Abaddon, the Revelation 9/11, the entity looking over the devastation or looking over the abyss. In fact, the Titanic was associated with the Twin Towers sinking 4 years before, and on 9/11/2001, James Cameron was at the site of the sunken Titanic, filming a documentary called Ghosts in the Abyss. So you got Abyss, another 9/11 reference, in the Deep Sea Challenger. We've done some extensive symbolic breakdown regarding Revelation 9/11 and how it ties into Trump and how these things are inseparable. By the way, does anybody know how many times James Cameron took his submersible down to view the Titanic? Take a guess. He went to see the Titanic wreckage how many times? Filmmaker James Cameron famously completed 33 dives to the wreckage of the Titanic from 95 to 97. It says here, they were at the site when they received the news of the September 11th attacks. He was at the depth of 12,000 feet. He sold his ranch home. Does anybody know how much his ranch home sold for, his mansion? Penguinotti says 33. Joe from Connecticut, 33. Yeah, you got that right. He listed his home in 2023. It's called the Tranquility Base. 8,000 square foot main residence, 5 bedrooms, 2 offices, gym, game room, Ocean View Library where he wrote the Avatar series. It was listed for $33 million. Water Walking says, one time there was this channel showing the news the day JFK got hit. It looked very scripted. People were, yes. You know, if you look at the day JFK was shot, the news media were talking about failures of Secret Service resulting in previous assassinations going by or attempts. They were talking about assassination on that day. And then you had a number of crisis actors who were just saying the darndest things. There was like, you can find this stuff. There was this girl who said that she saw the president and his wife in the car and they had a dog and they were waving. It's like, the dog? So you had obvious crisis acting back then as well. Again, we talked about this earlier on the Fakeologist show, how John Frankenheimer, who directed the Manchurian Candidate, was associated with JFK and RFK. And he's the guy who pretty much created the genre of mind-controlled assassin movies. But he drove RFK to the Ambassador where he was killed. And you know, 2 months before JFK's assassination, we're talking September 22nd, 1963, he and Jackie made a home movie where he was assassinated, and they enlisted the help of the Secret Service. They reportedly used Heinz 57 ketchup for the blood, and the Secret Service agents who participated in that were there on the day of the assassination. Jim Aaron says, what's the connection Trump has to Apollo Apollyon? You know, we'll do a big breakdown of it at some point because it needs an entire mind map so you can see the entire construct. But it also ties in to, well, it explains why every single movie that has a Trump character in the predictive programming role has an association of time travel, 9/11, or an assassination attempt, or all three, like with Donnie Darko. Back to the Future, time travel, 9/11, for example. The Homelander has the assassination thing, obviously, that's the main one of the day. But then you had the more recent Francis Ford Coppola, that movie, Megalopolis, Make Rome Great Again, 100% about Trump. The main character, Caesar Catalina, and this is intriguing. This whole movie is just, it's deep. He survives an assassination attempt. New York gets 9/11. But the movie itself was supposed to come out before 9/11. They were filming it during 9/11. And they even had footage from September 11th, 2001 in the release of the movie in a montage. The reason why Coppola decided to delay the movie is that it would have been redundant because it was basically about 9/11 and then 9/11 happens. But the time travel stuff goes pretty deep. You've got the Quantum Leap episode, It's a Wonderful Life, where the main character in that show teleports back to May 10th, 1958, and he's driving Fred Christ Trump in a taxi, and 12-year-old Donald Trump is in the car with him. So time travel, Trump reference. The date is interesting because the 1958 TV show Trackdown had an episode called End of the World, which aired on May 9th, 1958. And that's the one that has Trump as the con man who warns the public about a cosmic threat, builds a wall, which foreshadows Space Force, and then he's arrested. But the connections between Abaddon or Abaddon, Apollyon, the angel in the abyss, this stuff is where you get the 9/11 biblical reference as it pertains to Ground Zero. And I think there's something else here as well. See, I think Apollyon, let me see if I can get the etymology here. I think it may tie into the idea of exterminator. Exterminator. And let me see if I can get that connection here. Etymology. The destroyer, Apollyon, Abaddon, and then of course you have I have to open up a new window here with my perplexity. I'm going to mind map it out on a board. If you're not familiar with this stuff, because it's very intricate. Yeah, the a bad dawn thing. Unfortunately, it keeps giving me, oh, here we go. Found it. Apollyon is described as the destroyer or the exterminator associated with the Hebrew name Abaddon or Abaddon in apocalyptic theology. So I'm just pointing out that exterminator kind of references Terminator. And so for the Terminator to be overlooking Ground Zero in the collateral damage billboard is highly significant. So now we have the Terminator, that same figure, showing up again in the theaters in a couple of weeks. All right, let's see what else we have in the comments. Lean Dion says the Sun newspaper in the UK had the headline, United King Don when Trump met Charles. Interesting. Yeah, we could pretty much make more connections with this, but I think it'd be best if we mind map it out and go with the entirety of our existing research. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, IPS, how's it going, man?
Hey, thank you for calling.
Yep, this is Tim Truth. I just wanted to call and say I'm glad you're back at it. Looks like you got back into the normal routine, and sorry about your channel getting struck. I just had something similar happen on mine. It just deleted my whole channel. So I just wanted to call in and say that I think you're right that something's about to happen.
Yeah, okay, I'm glad you agree with that, because now, what was their rationale for taking your channel out?
Deceptive practices and spam or scam, it was very unclear.
Me too.
As always.
Okay, yeah, I am inauthentic artificial intelligence, and I'm repetitive spam, and I have no commentary value. That's what they told me.
Yeah, that's absurd. And yeah, I think something big's about to happen, and not sure what it is, but it does seem like instead of waiting until afterwards and then striking people down after they get heard, it's just so I think it'll be interesting if sorry, it's the background noise. If something does happen, it shows premeditation.
Yes, absolutely. Major hoax indicator in advance. Well, hey, thanks for checking in. Thanks for calling in. We're going to do this pretty much every night. Back to where we are. I have everything set up. It's dark in here, so you can't see me, but everything's running just fine. And we are ready to cover what comes next. And I agree. I think they are pre-purging because they want to have total creative control over what they do next. And I think it has something to do with nukes and UFOs.
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of ways they could go with it. But I just wanted to tell everybody who's watching to make sure that they follow you on, I think Substack is what you're using, and Patreon and stuff, because you never know when this channel is going to go down.
Yeah,
so thanks for taking my call.
IPS.monster. And how do they find you?
I don't even know. It's very demoralizing.
Okay, well, just call in, and the bigger we get, the more we can network and rebuild channels quickly. We've done this before. Anyway, thank you for the call, Tim Truth. Have a great night.
You too, man.
You know, in the early days of this channel, people were beginning to face the censorship for criticizing Vegas and Sandy Hook. And we made it a point, because back then I had 7,500 subs, to direct subscribers to channels who are who are in the same position. And the reason why is that we have to network so that we can remain buoyant and we can kind of keep each other alive in this system. We have to watch each other's backs, because look what they've done. That's a major betrayal. And it's just terrible that YouTube gets away with being a publisher, pretending to be a platform, and how they're able to monopolize this space. And it's not just that, because it's not even, I mean, these are unfair trade practices. But what's even worse is YouTube is an extension of government-controlled media. They supplant every psyop, they suppress the opposition, they silence the critics, and they platform all the fake stuff. So now they're in a position here where they allowed a lot of people in under false pretenses. Like, hey, look, make some AI slop, get rich. So you have all these new channels, flood the zone. They create a problem because now there's too much AI slop. So what do? They pull all those channels, but they also pull down a lot of authentic channels with it. So people like Tim Truth and myself are just labeled AI spam. They nuked us. But the only reason they would do so, because they're hemorrhaging money, is because they're getting ready for some operation. And of course, we're all going to talk about it, make content, call it fake, and all that. That's going to happen. But we don't have the traction right now or the reach that we would have otherwise, or a lot of these channels would have otherwise. I don't think they wanted too much competition because they want to curate the event and control how it is interpreted, which is especially important now when you look at how people are able to monetize and bring a lot of traffic to AI clips. Most of the multi-million hit videos, the big videos that I saw when the war in Iran started, were from flight simulations. That's a lot of traffic. That's a lot of time and diversion. And now if you think about it, let's say they do some crap like, let's say they bring out the aliens. Well, anybody with a big channel can make a bunch of alien content and say, hey, look guys, UFOs. And what that does is it dilutes the impact of the PSYOP. It dilutes the seriousness of it. And I'm pretty sure if they do the nuke thing, it's going to also include an EMP. So they're also going to try to delay any kind of communication and content creation with blackouts. But yes, I think it's a setup. And I've been saying too that whenever you see planted narratives and red herrings, that there is evidence it's a hoax. Because real events don't have planted narratives and red herrings. So we know it's a hoax indicator. So as Tim Truth said, this is proof of premeditation. Deborah says, raise your hand if your YouTube channel is deleted many years ago, went to BitChute. I'd then gone to, and they were, of course, there's too much BS there. Yes, they try to throw you into these smaller sites, which they shut down later. In fact, this can't be a coincidence. They just pulled DLive. So DLive was a major alternative platform when YouTube said, we don't want lockdown resistors or critics of Fauci. Like the whole anti-vax movement moved to places like BitChute, Rumble, and DLive. And DLive was really quick on the monetization. In fact, DLive was a passive source of income when I had a 24-hour live stream because it would consistently earn $1 an hour minimum. 168 hours a week, it covers all the bills for the channel. And they deleted us when January 6th happened because we made fun of it. So to me, it's good riddance. They're obviously sellouts, but they want you to be comfortable on these alternative platforms, which they can then shoot down later. Because you're no longer a threat when you take yourself out of the commons. This is why you can't cede territory. That's why even though we are building our independent off-world stage platform, we're still keeping our position on YouTube because it is the commons. Now, we are on BitChute, Infinite Plane Society. These live streams auto-export to BitChute now. Yes, I can host spaces now. They did block me from that as well for some time. I mean, unbelievable. My experiences with X and YouTube pretty much, and what we can observe with the influencers shows that it's a rigged system. Infinite Muse says, they just demonetized my little channel back in 2019 or so. They did it to the smaller channels. Well, when we started doing this approach of preemptively calling out the fakery, it became clear that we were competing with media. You may not remember it, but in 2017, if a shooting happened at a mall, for example, CBS would report it, Fox would report it, NBC would be reporting it, and then these YouTube channels would say, it's fake, it's a hoax. Well, the live YouTube channels would compete with the mainstream. And at that point, when Vegas happened, YouTube made this decision and they said, we are going to de-emphasize small channels and promote authoritative channels whenever there are tragedies. So right then, they decided to give these big media platforms preferential treatment. And that's when we all got shut down. But yes, I think it's intriguing here to see DLive go down, a host of YouTube channels. It's like, what are they setting the stage for? But what I'm looking at now is how much of the alien predictive programming also contains nukes. Is that what we're heading to? But I'm not going to get forced off of these platforms and run to some dark corner of the internet. They did the same thing with Discord. We had a pretty lively Discord server with hundreds of people, 500 people in it, 24/7 content creation. I mean, thousands of memes. Timbuktu. Do any of you still have nightmares about that place, Timbuktu? And what they did is they let you have your freedom outside of their view so that you weren't a problem to them. But then the feds sent all kinds of contractors into the Discord servers with bannable memes. You know, the usual stuff. The racist stuff, the anti-vax medical misinformation stuff, so that your channels could be flagged and shut down. Like, it's kind of a vulnerable point to consider that the Discord server could blow up and be very effective, but then one person could say the wrong thing and compromise the whole thing. Oh, Gilded. Gilded was the alternative that got also Gilded shut down. They're maintaining their control, their monopoly over the interpretation of fake events. Trutherville has always been a honeypot, an intellectual cul-de-sac. It's been stagnant for a long time. Q Street, Alex Jonestown with their Kool-Aid, the whole place is toxic. So if you're there and you get censored, I have very little sympathy. But we learned our lesson a long time ago about being over-reliant on monetization from a single source. And at this point, the mission is so crucial that even without monetization, we're going to make it work through other means. Even if I'm, just stocking groceries, it doesn't matter. Whatever it takes. We're in a good position now. I think this is our third night now with a decent internet connection. And I've got about 2 weeks ahead of me where I can be hyper-focused on this. So we're working out a number of short videos. I'm calling them IPS deep dives. So we're going to do focuses on very narrow areas at a time. Like, I'll do a video on the rise of, we'll say, left-leaning Reddit radicalized trans shooters. I'll do a video on the bowl cut shooters and those events, but we'll do event by event breakdowns. We're also incorporating a form of marketing you call video clipping. And if you're into video clipping, and I'm not trying to just get subscribers to do this because there are people who do this for a living. I'm on a website for video clippers, and I'm going to start uploading our content, phone calls, any kind of videos that we think we want distributed. And there's an entire marketplace for this stuff. And there are people who will promote these videos for money. And so we have a bit of a budget for that as well. Deborah says, Discord, Telegraph, all front and back doored. Trump trained, too many government agent posers. Yes. Yeah, I agree with you on all these points. Nothing's private here. Netflix purchased all of your direct messages on Facebook and your search histories. And this has been one of the reasons why I've emphasized print. By putting things into print, we're EMP proof. And the tabloid that we have is designed so that there's QR codes linking every article to digital content, MP3s, websites, etc., so that we can always reconstitute and we're always building the network in such a way that can't be censored. So going into print, going into the real world is next. Infinite Muse says, a Hydra mascot would be cool, Hydra Quinn. You know, we do have this image, I think Cubstar made it, of a Hydra and every head is a penguin. I mean, that is the approach. The Crack Gwyn. The Crack Gwyn could have multiple heads. Who knows what form it's going to take, but it's definitely rising. Well, it's good to hear from Tim Truth, and thanks, Adam, for calling. I'll do a deep dive in. That's what we want to do. We want to do deep dives into every one of these characters, like the Ed Harris, and how he's the demiurge in so many movies. The Tom Cruise stuff, the sun god, the hero, crucified, dying, resurrecting savior. Yeah, we need to go ahead and put all these things out there. Wayne Dion says, over 250 YouTube channels wiped over the years. Yeah, that's kind of crazy to think about. From 2017 to about 2023, we were consistently losing channels. Like, I mean, I have a spreadsheet that I shared with YouTube's legal department when I sued them in small claims to show that somebody was exploiting their copyright strike system, and we had been shut down during live streams randomly. Anytime we'd get more than 100 subs, we'd be shut down. They shut us down more than 150 times. I mean, I'm understating it. 250 is probably more accurate. And I have all these documented. It was a targeted harassment campaign by an individual who we know quite well here, who isn't going to escape. There's not like a statute of limitations he can appeal to, because many of his more recent hacking attempts and successes were, interestingly, a few days before the Charlie Kirk event. I mean, this guy got into my Spotify, Vimeo, my WordPress, Gravatar, and Ko-Fi. Man, there's a long list. I had like 12 different social media accounts, which I got back by sending letters to the relevant legal departments. So I have evidence of all these attempts to hack my accounts. But I remember thinking, what's going on that he's suddenly been activated to come up against me? And I thought it's because my book was coming out. Well, see, the WordPress thing, if you didn't know at the time, I did have a WordPress website, and I had a significant number of subscribers. So for him to hack my WordPress it was meant to cut me off, of course. Oh, then he also got into my Stripe, which is my bank account. So my Stripe account was shut down because of his many attempts to access it. He didn't get in, but I spoke with them at length. It took me, in fact, my Stripe bank account was shut down for 3 months last year. I couldn't take payments. And the reason why is they couldn't give me access to it because of the way he had compromised it. It was a big pain. Now, I finally got it repaired. But my point of it is, he was seemingly activated days before the squibbing of Charlie Kirk. Probably not a coincidence. But yes, the censorship we faced has not been performative. And we can use the word censored. You can't say, oh, it's a private platform, and this wasn't about a private platform. This is about a Department of Defense, White House press corps, FBI adjacent shady individual given some kind of special privileges to work behind the scenes at YouTube, who had some kind of role in the dissemination of QAnon drops, who created the whole myth of JFK Jr. coming back to life. That was him. Well, that guy, being part of the government, set out after the IPS, to me that sounds like censorship. But anyway, we're just getting started here. There's some loose ends to tie up. He's not getting away. In fact, I'm very much looking forward to it. And the lawsuit just needs to be relaunched. It's just been technical things every time. The main thing is finding him and getting him served. But anyway, it's going to happen eventually. And when it does, all this stuff is going to come to the surface. One of the reasons for suing, even though it seemed to be a lost cause, is it allowed me to put all of the evidence in the public record. It's searchable. You can look online, you can find the lawsuit, and you can find the emails with headers, the evidence, his confession, how he hijacked the copyrights to this channel by lying to YouTube about being me. I mean, this is a long-term operation. I mean, it's crazy to think about that this stalker of the IPS channel has been in my life and more problematic than, and been in my life longer than any of my exes. It's like this stalker is just looking to me like a really big loser at this point. Because for what? He wasted all that time and energy trying to shut us up and did it work? Well, no. I mean, if anything, it backfired. Back in 2018, Deborah says the court doesn't care about you. Well, that doesn't matter. And if you knew anything about the background of our lawsuits, you would agree that these were in fact successful because they did accomplish what they needed to. I don't really fall into the pessimism because it's really just a process, which I understand pretty well. I'm just not a pessimist. I never have been. It's like it's basically a cognitive bias, and it's not a winning strategy. But a lot of people said, "Are you wasting your time? Why are you doing it here?" It's like, don't you understand here? Look, let me give you an example. In 2018, YouTube made the first change to their strike system than they had in 10 years. What they did was, they said, when you get a strike, you're not just going to be demonetized for 90 days. You get a warning first. That warning system was put there because of me, because of my lawsuit and my spreadsheet where I showed how this system was being exploited. So I consider that a win. Also, the fact that we doxed the person using the court system and a DMCA subpoena, that's a win. We doxed an operative who wasn't supposed to be revealed. So anyway, no, I don't really make room for pessimism. I mean, unless you know something I don't. It's not about the court caring about you. It's actually a process that just needs to be understood. And the AI has made everything so much easier. I use AI to write my legal paperwork, to do my research. Perplexity has been tremendously helpful. When I had my 9 or 10 social media accounts hijacked last September, the reason I got them back so quick is I had ChatGPT write me notices of intent to sue, and I had them targeting every single one of these platforms' legal departments, and all of them responded to me. Jamarian says, Tim, was it Pizzagate that brought the first round of YouTube purges? Okay, now that's a good question, because there were some things that changed. Like, okay, for example, in 2018, there was a Flat Earth conference hosted by Logan Paul. which was ridiculous, but the media was all over it. And what they were seeking was an excuse to justify compromising free speech to prevent the flow of what they considered to be dangerous misinformation. So they started saying the auto play feature was leading people into conspiracy rabbit trails. It was brainwashing people. So suddenly they said, look, you got this famous guy, 20 million subs, Logan Paul. He's reaching children, and now he's saying the earth is flat. This is too much. So they were able to use this innocuous conspiracy theory as an excuse to justify changing YouTube's search filters so people wouldn't find each other and communicate. Because whatever you think about the topic, if you're objective about it, you have to look at how great this was. In 2015, 2016, a bunch of random people could jump into Google Groups or Google Video, and they would very easily have panel discussions on YouTube that would last all night. These panel discussions don't happen like that anymore. The bar to entry has been raised pretty high, but it was just this open forum for discourse and debate that I thought was very constructive, and it brought a lot of people, together in the spirit of discourse and the exchange of ideas. Well, they shut that all down. And I was like thinking, isn't sunlight the best decontaminant? Isn't it the fact that discussing things will eventually... No, they don't even want us talking about it. Because that's the thing. They don't want us finding the truth or getting our information from the grassroots up. They don't want us informing each other. We're supposed to all have a direct one-to-one relationship with Big Brother, where he can beam his mind viruses directly into our brains with no peripheral information. Yeah, but those hangouts were great. The hangouts. But they don't have a platform for that anymore. I try to get into spaces, and it's like, well, I'm not a big influencer. I'm not part of their rigged system. So the system is not designed for those of us who aren't compliant with their orthodoxies. That's for sure. And, whatever you think about the flat earth topic, it was never about flat earth. It was about skepticism. It was about not believing stuff and then starting from scratch as far as, how do I know what I know? What is the basis for my knowledge claims? Because what you find out is that everybody was wallowing in ignorance, especially the people who were super certain that they could just trust what they were told. And then you ask them, well, how do you know? I was told. And then you would find out that, wait, why are the people who think the earth is flat more informed about heliocentrism than most of its defenders? So I think it was healthy for exposing a bit of hubris and overconfidence, and then opening the floodgates for skepticism directed at institutions that had previously been more or less considered sacrosanct and unimpeachable. And the skepticism leveled towards the space agencies is entirely warranted. Not to mention the question of fakeability. What actually is fakeable at what scale? And it's not about shape. It's about open or closed systems, because we find out that we live in a closed informational system. As I was describing earlier, the mainstream mediated worldview can be considered a fictional universe at this point. A fictional universe and a hyper reality. If you don't know what that means specifically, fictional universe, you can look at it as the Marvel universe, the Star Wars universe, Disneyland, Warner Brothers. These are different scenarios or settings for a bunch of characters and stories that are all relating, but may have different authors. But the point of it is, It's like a franchise. So you realize, okay, wait, mainstream and alternative are in a closed system, and by pretending to have an opposition, they exclude any legitimate third perspectives. Deborah says, you are pro-skepticism, not critique critical cynicism. Well, skepticism, I take skepticism in the sense of like Pyrrho in the original sense, where it's predicated on the suspension of judgment. So somebody flashes a headline and they say, I believe this is true. And I'm saying, well, you're credulous. You don't have enough information to know it's true based on a headline. The skeptic would wait for more information, which means they're non-believers until the information supports the idea, at which point they know it to be true. If the information doesn't support it, the best you can say is, I'm an informed non-believer. I don't believe it because the information doesn't support it. You believe it because you're a low information believer. So what weighs more? If you put them on a scale, low information belief or informed disbelief? Informed disbelief, the skeptic's view. And we're not even talking agnosticism. We're talking about Gnosticism, knowing as much as we possibly can about something, as opposed to low information accepting it. And it just turns out, what's the difference between someone who doesn't believe it and someone who does? Well, the person who doesn't believe it knows more. That's the distinction. It's like, what's the difference between somebody who believes in Apollo 11 and someone doesn't? Like, well, we were all given the same story. We read the same textbooks. We saw the same movies. So it's not like we're saying it's fake out of ignorance, because we know just as much as the believers. The reason why we say that it's a hoax or fake is because the additional research, the additional points of view. So more information makes it seem likely that it's totally fake. So the people who believe it are believing it in spite of or in ignorance of the contradictions. So we make this strong distinction here, because to be a mainstream news consumer, you can only be a believer. You're not a knower. You've outsourced. To be an alternative news believer, you're just following alternative programming. You don't know these things to be true. You merely believe them. And I'm saying belief systems are inferior to a skeptical operating system rooted in informed disbelief. Fake until proven real. And we've been saying this for years, but thanks to the advent and the recent rapid iterations of generative AI, we've been 100% vindicated. The public can no longer differentiate real and fake. They cannot delineate between the two. And it's not just about the day-to-day things. Because what we've been compiling in our great deconstruction project is that the fakery has been systemic for decades. So fake news infused news cycles get a pass. They introduce fake events, fake people into our timeline. They proactively create our history, but it goes back decades. Well, what do you think that means? It means that our history is bent, infused with fiction. It means that we live in a fictional universe. Fictive level 1, as they say in Black Mirror. And I say we, I'm referring to the masses who are still contained in the duopoly, the main and the alternative. Again, they're two sides of the same coin. It's triangulation. Those of us who recognize the program, which I define as the decades-long sequence of fake events, past the ones in the present and pretty much scheduled into the future, those of us who recognize the secondary timeline of fakery and separate it from the real world, yeah, we are deprogrammed. We're not in their closed system. We see through it. And it's an invisible cage. You can understand why people don't see through it, but the compartmentalization is what gives it away. That's why I find it useful to talk about the compartmentalization that divides people into predictable categories when it comes to their opinions. Like, I can tell that if you're on the right, you're likely going to say aliens are demons. If you're on the left, aliens are real. If you're on the right, you might believe in angels and demons, and the left, you're going to mock these things. And you find these consistent patterns where the structure of the system is given away. People's responses are predictable. And the reason why they do this, of course, is that by arranging every single event in such a way that it creates this political football effect, these dialectics, left versus right, they get the engagement going. And it's the engagement with the fake events that make them real. But yes, belief isn't knowing. And another point here too is, why should you be a believer? Why should you be putting faith in media, faith in news? Like, you shouldn't be. Their whole job is to provide you the information to back their own claims. That's what journalism does. So you shouldn't be believing the news. You should know based on credible sources and information. And if you don't have enough information to know it, you shouldn't claim to know it. You should claim to be a believer in it. And when you look at it from this perspective, you realize that most of the news is really taken on faith. It's become a de facto belief system. That's why I call media a religion. It has supplanted religion. And this was very clear over Easter, as I was talking about yesterday, when you look at the overlapping of the Artemis mission, the Easter holiday, and the movie Project Hail Mary. Yes, passive belief in the authorities, says Lean Dion. Another major distinction between us and them. The world stagers, main and alt, are passive news consumers. By passive, it means they absorb the information first, unless they're told it's fake, which never happens. There's not a skeptical moment in there where they pause and reflect. They reflexively believe their own side. That's passive. The suspending of judgment requires the active engagement with the information. So again, we have an active mode of approaching the information, critical thinking, and we really, without any kind of apologies for it, we reject stuff all the time. Like, they want you to feel bad for calling things fake. They used to say, oh, you can't call it fake. You got to wait until the victims have mourned. It's like, I don't care about the feelings of these grinning crisis actors. I'm not gonna wait to judge this thing fake because it's fitting a certain pattern. And our pattern recognition, our empirical evidence over the years, has led us to what I call hoax indicators. And we have a long list of hoax indicators. In fact, I'm compiling a new list. So if you're not familiar with hoax indicators, the idea is a real event, an organic, real happening, isn't going to have these 15 aspects or attributes every single time. While fake events do have the same exact hoax indicators. Like I said earlier, red herrings. Red herrings, second shooter conspiracy theories. Well, look, these planted conspiracy theories are evidence of fakery. Real events don't have conspiracy theory rabbit trails built into it, presumably on the presumption that a lot of people are going to go that way. Every conspiracy theory out there is a controlled opposition narrative, if you didn't know. Conspiracy theorists are actually believers in alternative programming, and they are our ideological opponents. Like, we are not conspiracy theorists. The conspiracy theorists are well-intentioned people who saw through the mainstream stuff, but they didn't run far or fast enough, or they gave up too soon, and they got complacent and stagnant. The people who follow Candace Owens, or who are still following mainstream channels, who follow people like Stu Peters, like, to me, they're just as bad as their mainstream counterparts, if not worse. All right, well, we've covered a lot of ground tonight. We're going to be increasingly organized as we go forward as far as topics. But at this point, we're just establishing the routine. I'm going to try to stick with the 6 p.m. or 6:30 today. It was Fakeologist. That's why we're a little bit late tonight. But tomorrow, it'll be a bit earlier again. And I'm going to be putting the archives up. Go to ips.monster and subscribe. And if you look at the archives that I'm posting, I'm using Notebook LLM to do a synopsis of the transcript, and I will provide quotes for the callers and for me. Jamarian says, Tim, the new book title, Everything You Want to Know About Media Fakery But Were Afraid to Ask. It's not bad. Well, we have Handbook for the Recently Deprogrammed, The Skeptic's Guide to the Theater of Psywar. You can get that book at ips.monster. I have 3 copies of it here. It's going to be an audiobook and an ebook by the end of the week. And I am going to do a follow-up ebook and video where I'm listing all of the hoax indicators. So another hoax indicator, concurrent programming, predictive programming. You don't have mainstream, popular, #1 trending Netflix shows that are perfectly describing real-time, real events. The predictive and concurrent programming only ever references fake events. The relationship between propaganda and entertainment and fake events needs to be understood. The events that are foreshadowed in entertainment are invariably fake. These are not real events. So you can get rid of the whole notion that predictive programming is, quote, revelation of the method. They have to tell us. They're going to do bad things, so they tell us, so they don't have to face karma. Like, we have this collection of really batty, insane, nonsensical explanations for what we've figured out. InfoWars has not figured it out. They're still confused. I say 99.9% of the truthers have not figured it out. When they see predictive programming, they think dark occult forces, simulation theory, but they have not figured it out. We have. So if you want to understand that stuff, go pick up a copy of the book, Handbook for the Recently Deprogrammed. And when I do get on the phone with Mark Sargent, we're going to talk about this because, in my opinion, because he's still, basically flat-centric. But what I'm talking about here is worldview warfare, how your worldview is shaped. What we're talking about is bigger, if you ask me, than the flat earth topic, which is fundamentally a dead end insofar as nobody can really do anything to prove it anyway. It's practically a dead end. I mean, it's useful, it's entertaining, it's funny. I think it's funny how it triggers people. You know who messaged me today? MC Toon messaged me on Facebook. And he's like, oh, you're still around. And I don't know if it was like, good to see you, bro. I'm glad you're still alive. Or if it was, oh, you're still around. Like, I don't know if it was love or hate, but he acknowledged me on Facebook. And I'm looking through his whole content. And that guy has spent like 5 years just single-mindedly focused on making flat earthers look dumb. Like, that's his whole shtick. And it's like, you know what? I don't care what that guy's opinion is on NASA or moon landings because he believes all the news is real. And that's the thing. You're the people who are willing to go so far as to question the shape of the earth have gone at least far enough to know that media is a liar, a pathological liar, a strategic liar. These other people who are super confident in NASA, they don't know the news is fake. You know how laughable that is? It's a joke. It's risible. It's pathetic, actually. Lean Dion says he must be miserable. Yeah, I don't know what motivates them. Like, really, like, of all the things to be mad at, like, if you're going to spend 5 years of your life going after a demographic, why not go after some actual bad people, like fentanyl dealers, or predators, or fraudsters and scammers? Going after people who don't trust the space agencies, that's not the way to go. And look, I go after irrationality, illogic. I go after conspiracy theories all the time. I've done quite a lot of work as far as dispelling anti-scientific thinking that goes into chemtrail nonsense, Mandela effect nonsense. These guys haven't done so because they don't have good faith or good intentions. I'm not making enemies of people. Like, when I say there's no such thing as chemtrails, I'm not doing it to bash the people who believe in these things. I'm doing it to show them, look, you're falling for a very sophisticated psychological operation that's playing upon your susceptibility to loaded questions and faulty causality. If you can't get these two fallacies under control, you will always have these holes in your mental immune system. And the public is programmed with many holes. Their mental immune system is so compromised that I've been saying for a while now that the government has given the public mind aids. But there's a cure for it. There's inoculation available. It's called infinite plane radio. So if you're a MAIDS patient, this is where you should be. We have a cure for that stuff. And so it's not really shame-based. Like, I'm not argumentative, but I do think we need to highlight our points of disagreement and articulate our arguments so we can see, what is and what isn't true. BML says G7 Wi-Fi is healthy for you, LOL. You know what I think? I think phobia, I think paranoia, fear is unhealthy. For example, chemtrails are fake, but chemtrail lung could be psychosomatically induced. You got placebo effects, nocebo effects, psychosomatics. Having irrational fears about 5G towers is probably worse for your health than the 5G tower itself. So the fact that you're afraid of it is something you should reconsider. And you could say, I'm not afraid of it, but you are afraid of it. If you're warning us about it being unhealthy, you are admitting that you fear it. And I'm without fear. Like, I'm not afraid of nukes. I'm not afraid of Trump. I'm not afraid of Epstein or P. Diddy, maybe. But for the most part, like, this world stage stuff is just bread and circuses. But we'll continue this conversation tomorrow. Sign up for the newsletter, ips.monster. Thanks for your comments. Thanks for your calls. And I agree with what Tim Truth said, that it appears to be the case that they're setting the stage for something big. That's what the purge is. It's a preemptive strike against those of us who are paying too much attention. All right, so we will be back tomorrow. I'll see you in Discord. I'm going to go into the voice chat temporarily while I wrap things up here. So if you want to jump into the IPS Discord, Just go into the voice chat if you want to chat, and a number of us will be there. Nicholas says, were you able to get anywhere with the appeal? No, absolutely not. They said they know it's frustrating and that in 90 days I can reappeal, but they have concluded with human reviewers that my channel is inauthentic, repetitive, commentary free, of no value, fake AI slop. That's what they said. Like, they really made this, to me, it's just supremely ironic that we are the realest channel on YouTube. And that's not an exaggeration. I think we can make the case that we are the only objectivist channel out there, the only non-subjectivists. I think we can make the case that we're the only ones who aren't 1 foot in, 1 foot out of the matrix. We are delineating correctly between real and fake, and they're going to call us fake. I mean, it's completely backward.